You're watching Local News Network Durango. I'm Deborah Uroda, sitting in for Wendy Graham-Settle. A former U.S. ambassador has entered the Democratic primary race for U.S. Senator. The winner of the state primary will try to unseat first-term Republican Senator Cory Gardner, whose support for President Trump and his policies has made him a target of the National Democratic Party. Baer, who most recently served as executive director of the Colorado Commission on Higher Education in the Hickenlooper administration, announced his candidacy last week. He joins a crowded primary field of Democratic hopefuls, including former state senator Mike Johnston, former House Speaker Andrew Romanov, biomedical scientist Trish Sornillo, University of Colorado Women's Studies professor Stephanie Rose Spalding, and Lorena Garcia, executive director of the Colorado Statewide Parent Coalition. Baer was on his announcement tour around Colorado earlier this month when he stopped by the Local News Network studio to talk about his candidacy. Baer is a Harvard and Oxford graduate who served as U.S. Ambassador to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe and as a Deputy Assistant Secretary of State in the Obama administration. He served as Executive Director of the Higher Education Commission in 2018 to wrap up Hickenlooper's term as governor. More than anything else, Baer says he's running a campaign against cynicism and a campaign for hope.
I think we're living through a moment where people are recognizing that if we keep sending the same type of person to Washington over and over again, it's not surprising that we get the same type of results.
During the past 2 years, Baer has worked sporadically as a Lyft driver to meet people and to learn about the issues that concern them.
The stories vary widely, and I don't use it, I don't ask people in the car, kind of give me your best policy idea for how to fix that. I use it more just to better understand the challenges that people face in their life.
Baer has vowed to refuse contributions from big corporations and has promised not to seek work as a lobbyist after he serves as senator. Campaign reform is at the top of his agenda. I
think tackling corruption or big money in our politics is a big one for me. Education, the environment, jobs, I think healthcare, obviously. I think those issues are the issues that people feel at their kitchen table. And I think one of the things that I do hear from a lot of folks is that even middle class folks today feel nervous, even if they have healthcare, even if they have a job, even if they know that their kids are in a good school and are going to be prepared to go on to post-secondary education, they're not sure they're going to be able to pay for that post-secondary education. They're not sure that they might not lose their health care, and they see the fights over pre-existing conditions going on in Washington, and they're worried about that. And so I think those issues have to be front and center. I think the anti-corruption thing, I made a pledge on the first day that I would take no corporate PAC money, and furthermore that I would never be a lobbyist, because I think one of the problems is that people collect corporate money on the way into office and they collect it on the way out. And I don't think anybody should go to Washington aiming to serve the people of Colorado with the idea that at the end of that they're going to become rich and cash out. That's not the reason to do this job. And I think tackling that kind of anti-corruption work is important to getting everything else done, because it is central to the reason why we have a logjam on so many issues that matter to people and that hit us in our pocketbooks and at our kitchen table every day.
Baer says his foreign policy experience separates him from the crowded Democratic primary field and will give him an edge in a race against Gardner, who currently serves on the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations and is a chair of the Subcommittee on East Asia, the Pacific, and Cybersecurity.
There are so many huge problems in the world that we can't solve alone, and unfortunately Trump's America First has more often than not been America alone. We can't solve a lot of these problems on our own, and the world can't solve them without American leadership. And so I think the first step for us is going to be across the board, reaching out to our friends and allies, making it clear that we are ready to lead a cooperative effort on climate change, that we are ready to lead a cooperative effort on securing nuclear weapons and making sure that the nuclear threat is mitigated and contained. We are ready to lead a cooperative effort on making sure that we're prepared for global disease. We are ready to lead a cooperative effort on raising standards for labor, on having fair trade, not just free trade. So I think those are things where we need to be ready to lead again, and I think the world will be ready for us to lead as well.
Baer said he was inspired by the Democratic turnout in 2018 and hopes the party's successes will continue to inspire voters to overcome the negativity and cynicism that currently pervades the political scene in Washington.
What is really inspiring in this moment is to run a campaign that isn't just about electing Dan Baer to the U.S. Senate, even though I am eager and ready to serve the people of Colorado, but that we run a campaign that is against cynicism and against letting Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump wear us down to the point of not caring. We have to say, look, we care about these issues. The problem isn't about us caring. The problem is, why don't you care more? Why don't you care enough to solve these problems?
Baer and his husband Brian live in Denver. For more information about his campaign, visit danforcolorado.com. Thanks for watching this edition of Local News Network Durango. If you like this story and want to watch it again, visit our website at durangotv.com, where you'll also find an archive of our past stories. I'm Deborah Uroda for Local News Network Durango.